I am Tanya Kennedy Bunting, and this is Tested. Today on Investigated Tested, we will talk about two cases. Lionel Tate, a 12-year-old boy who accidentally kills a 6-year-old girl while wrestling, and Taylor Shabazz, a 24-year-old woman who kills her boyfriend during intercourse while high on meth. We'll discuss today these two cases, the difference, and why I believe that race played too much of a part in the sentencing of these two murderers and how they were treated. Today on Investigated Testing.
Or a life sentence. But many observers were hopeful that Judge Joel Lazarus might find a legal loophole and hand down a lighter sentence. That was not to be the case.
Incarceration for your natural life.
The now 14-year-old Lionel Tate was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge's ruling stunned the courtroom. Lionel Tate was one of the youngest Americans ever to have received such a severe sentence. Now, even some members of the jury began questioning the trial's outcome.
Throwing him in jail for the rest of his life is not helping him. It's not helping society. It's certainly not helping, Tiffany Unick.
Prosecutor Ken Padowitz also felt the sentence was too harsh.
I realized that Tiffany Unick had justice, but I made no secret by the fact that I found life in prison with no parole inappropriate as a sentence.
Judge Lazarus, however, points out that the choice was not his to make.
The statute said simply a conviction for murder in the first degree is a mandatory life sentence. I had no options but to follow the law and sentence Lionel Tate to what the law dictated.
After his sentencing, Tate was sent to an adult prison in Miami. 3 days later, citing the boy's tender age, Florida Governor Jeb Bush transferred Tate to a juvenile facility in Okeechobee. But for many, this was not enough. Across the country, the initial shock at the sentence quickly turned to anger. Over the following weeks, letters from concerned Americans began flooding the governor's office, urging him to grant clemency to Lionel Tate. But on June 6, 2001, Governor Bush turned down those requests, saying Tate would have to serve at least 2 years before he would reconsider. It was a blow to Tate's growing circle of sympathizers, which by now included such high-profile figures as the Reverend Al Sharpton.
We come to do what is necessary to lead to justice for Lionel Tate and justice for the juvenile justice system.
As the public outcry continued, Tate's appeals process inched forward. Richard Rosenbaum had been hired as an appellate attorney following the conviction. To him, the prospect for his client was bleak.
When you get a life sentence in Florida, it means...
Bail is set tonight at $2 million for a woman charged in a Green Bay murder case. This one is disturbing. Taylor Shabazz charged today with multiple felonies, including intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and third-degree sexual assault. According to prosecutors, Shabazz said she and the victim were using drugs and engaging in sexual play, and the man was strangled. She then allegedly sexually abused him, dismembered his body, and placed body parts in various locations in the home and a vehicle.
So we have two cases. One in which a 12-year-old boy is playing a deadly game of wrestling with a much smaller young lady. The young lady that he was wrestling with and playing with, she was 6 years old and she was more than half his size. So she was tiny in comparison to him. He was large for his age at 14 years old. And he slams her into a coffee table, resulting in a lot of bruises and resulting in what they called, instead of an accident, first-degree murder. So to say that this young man purposely killed his playmate. He was African American. This happened in the 90s in the wake of the war on drugs and all of the things that were going on at that time. We had the young man that had been jailed in the park, and we had all of these things. This young man was the youngest person in United States history ever to be sentenced to death. 12-year-old African American, 14-year-old. By the time he was sentenced, he was 14 years old. And thinking about it realistically, what does that look like for not only the parents of the child that lost her life, but also this child who, instead of getting counseling and help at his age, was sentenced to life in prison. They tried to advocate for his freedom. As you can see from the footage, they tried to go to bat for this boy, but to no avail. And he spent, after appeals, he spent 5 years in jail. When he came out of prison, after 5 years, he had become a hardened criminal. I will show you pictures of him today that will show you that this man has become a career criminal, and 23 years later, he is in and out of jail and has been for the majority of his life. Why? Because he was institutionalized by a system that did not care about him. Fast forward to today, we have a woman, Taylor, 24 years old, gets high on drugs. She gets high on drugs, illegal drugs, an illegal substance, and she is engaging in sexual intercourse. Now, from what my understanding is, methamphetamines heighten the arousal and the release during sexual activity, and it makes it more pleasurable for the drug user. So that was the reason to take meth and then engage in sexual activity. However, she decapitates him and then goes on to further not only decapitate him, but cut him into little pieces and hide the body in various parts of the house. And then she tries to hide it. She didn't call 911 to say, oh my God, I accidentally killed my boyfriend. No, she hid the body parts. Whereas Lionel, young Mr. Tate, he calls his mother, Mom, she's not breathing. Mom, help, she's not breathing. I don't know what's wrong. They dial 911. She's not breathing. We were playing. I don't know what's wrong. This woman is sentenced to 5 years for decapitating her boyfriend and cutting his body up into little pieces. This young man is sentenced to life in prison at the age of 12. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. He comes out at 17 years old, and he is not the same young man that went in there. So again, I'm trying to figure out, where is the justice in that? Now, granted, it was back in the 90s. It was back when, you know, it was clear that things were not equal among African American community in terms of law and where law is concerned, that we were usually given the short end of the stick, the raw deal. But fast forward to today, a woman high on illegal drugs cuts her boyfriend's head off and hides the body parts. I don't understand. I don't understand how that makes sense. I don't understand how they can justify today that woman doing what she did giving little kids life in prison. And oh, there's prison reform, and oh, he didn't do life, he only did 5 years. That young man's life was forever changed, forever ruined. There's no telling what all happened to that young man in jail. People get raped in jail, men get sodomized in jail, all types of heinous things happen to people in jail. And so I hazard to say that our society has not gotten any better. Had this been an African American woman who did all of the same things that this Caucasian American woman did, do we think she would have gotten more time? 5 years is a drop in the bucket to think about the nature of the crime. And does it matter that this young man was an avid wrestling fan and he watched wrestling all the time? Does it matter that they have commercials and things that say, don't try this at home, this is dangerous? They tell us drugs are dangerous too. They tell us that meth can kill you, that meth can fry your brain, that it will turn you into a monster, and people still do it. Yet she got 5 years, and he got life. He did 5 years, but he got life. Where is the justice in that? Where is the fairness in that? Where is the equal treatment under the law? And have the laws changed much since then? I don't know, I doubt it. So, boys and girls, jaws and gents, this is just one woman's opinion. And this is the opinion of someone who is really, really fed up with the system and watching how our people are done versus